Hey there, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, superstars. It is Mr. Bill Pipes coming at you with another episode of Real Success. As you know, always alive, excited, and most of all, full of energy here. We have got a great guest today, and we've sort of toggled back and forth, and haven't had one of these conversations in quite some time of this ultra luxury agent, right? And there's such a mystique about the luxury market. And, the gentleman that I have the chance to interview here today, I mean, this is a guy that has been in the business for a very long time. I'll let him tell you how long he's actually been in the business, and just continues to grow, continues to evolve. I remember when I first got involved with Tom Ferry, Gary was one of the first individuals that I got a chance to meet. And I knew at that moment, I'm like, hey, here's a guy that I'm gonna be connected with for a very long time. And, really today, we're demystifying some of that mystique, but we're also looking at this whole component of relationships. Because in the end, when you look at how do you get more business from your database, it's your relationships that you have. How do you convert more leads quicker? It's by building a relationship quicker and sooner with them. How do you get a for sale by owner? How do you get an expired? How do you crush it on a listing presentation? It all comes down to your ability to be able to establish, maintain, and cultivate great relationships. And in my opinion, in the entire ecosystem of Tom Ferry, this guy is one of the best. So it's with my pleasure that I get to introduce you to Mr. Gary Gold. Gary, say hello to Real Success Nation, please.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Yeah.
I want to make one distinction, if you don't mind, when you were talking about relationships. It's, I think, as important or more important of who you know is really who you connect with, because you can know everyone in the world. You could have been the postmaster general. You could be the mayor. If you're not on the phone, if you're not on emailing, if you're not connecting with them, those relationships are pretty worthless for real.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I love these people, Gary, that are on Facebook and they've got like 5,000 friends, but really how many friends and how many relationships do they really have? And, today I really want to lean into that with everyone. Because you're an expert at this. Can you tell them a little bit about yourself, background, real quick, history from a high level, and, where you sell and how you got into business, just the basic backstory.
When I was 17 years old, I had the bright idea of trying to paint my own car, and I destroyed my own car. And my brother was a successful real estate agent, and this is in like 1977. And in 1977, the average agent was legally dead. And my brother was this like 21-year-old good-looking guy who drove around in a Corvette, and he was making a ton of money, and the real estate market was hot. He said, "Come work for me, I'll buy you a car." So that was how it happened. And I started doing his marketing. And I really didn't want to be a real estate agent. I wanted to be like a comedian or a songwriter or something like that. So he literally let me do whatever I wanted. And I started doing these super creative, beyond out of the box, just trippy marketing that no one ever had seen in real estate before. And we blew up so big. And a lot of it had to do with the marketing I was doing and him allowing me to do it. And now it's commonplace, like a personal brand. I mean, we're real estate agents are like rock stars or like skateboarders. We put ourselves out there in a big way and sometimes in an outrageous way. And I was one of the first people to really take that to another level in the 70s.
Wow. So you came in, I love that. Come work for me, I'll buy you a car, right? Yeah. And she came in, started off at marketing, transitioned over into sales. Now you've been doing this for how many years, Gary?
I've been doing that. I've been in the industry for 40 years. I started selling in 1981.
That's amazing, man. And as we were jokingly talking about before, there's no ticks and you're, you don't have the tick and you're completely 100% still lit up and inspired every single day to do the job. Well, brother, you sell in Beverly Hills, correct?
My office is in Beverly Hills. I sell all over Los Angeles. I've even sold in faraway exotic places.
Wow. So talk to me about, because you and I were talking yesterday and our conversation was centralizing around your follow-up process.
Yeah.
And, because you're a big game hunter, man. You sell 15, 20 homes per year, a couple $1 million per year. It's, that's the game. So how do you utilize or create relationships for this follow-up that could take long periods of time, bud?
Well, right now, and by the way, most of my business is referral, but a lot of these referral clients, I didn't know a year ago. I didn't know 6 months ago. I didn't know 2 years ago. So I'm constantly getting new people that I now have relationships with or know. And it really doesn't matter. You can build your whole business on people you don't know. Some of my best leads literally have been for Zillow leads. I was really early in the game there. So the key to all this is really being in touch with them. The first thing I think is really important that you need to do, and it's very simple, and we all might do it to a certain degree, but you've got to do it like to a perfect degree, is you need to capture anytime you get a lead or any leads you have now, capture it. It needs to be in one place. It needs to be in a CRM, a spreadsheet, something. And you need to capture that information. I like to research everyone I consider a lead, know where they live, know what they're buying, get some backstory on them to just have an idea of what's up with them. And then I track my communications with them. The real goal to be successful, right now it's really easy to get a lead. And the good news is it's never been easier to get a lead. The bad news is it's never been easier to get a lead. For every lead I have for someone who wants to buy or sell a big house, there's 10 other agents that have that same lead. And where I am, there's some good agents that have that same lead. Or there's some new agents that have nothing to do other than just track that particular lead and follow up with them that maybe I don't even have the time to do. Where all the money is made today is going from 1 in 10 agents. There's 2.3 million licensed agents. So being it's true. There's probably 1 million that work and probably 100,000 that make a really good living and 10,000 that make a ton of money. So you want one of 10 people that they've communicated with to being that one person they've communicated with. That's where all the money is made.
So how do you do that? I mean, I love this. You capture their information. We have to have it in some type of a CRM, whether that's Boomtown or Agent Legend or HubSpot or whatever it is that you use. You've got to have some type of a system, and it amazes me, Gary, how many people don't. But so how do you move from that I'm 10 of 10, right, to I'm the one that they want?
Yeah, I personally was unhappy with anything. I had used Top Producer, and it was like since 1994, but it was like a bad marriage that I couldn't afford to get out of. I actually created my own CRM that I've been using for 5 years that's blown up. And a lot of the principles really have a lot to do with what I've learned and, through Tom and your guys' organization. So how you do that? So the first step is you got to capture the information. I can't tell you how many people that they got emails, they've got text, they've got pieces of paper, and they just get distracted and they forget. So number one, you got to get them in one place. Number two, you need to engage with them. You could have a lead, but not necessarily have the phone call. And that step one is just have that initial engagement. Number two is I call it just to be engaged. You made the engagement, but now there's you talked, and there's at least a next step. There's something. Let me get back to you on this. I'll call you when I get home. Can you give me a call in a month? Whatever it is. Now in luxury, the gestation period from someone thinking about buying or selling to doing it can be super long. People have lots of options, and it's just a much longer process in the smaller ones. And then the holy grail, where you start becoming that person that's going to be the person that sells them a home, is when I call it in play with somebody. We were talking yesterday. You and I were trying to get together and do something with this show for months, and we had just alluded
for over a year, brother. It's been over a year where we've been trying to make this happen.
Everyone can relate to someone that they've been trying to get a hold of, and they go, we're playing phone tag, and they finally get together. And it's really interesting. Once you've made that connection and you made that initial talk, even if it's an old friend you haven't talked to in a year, but you've made that reconnection. Once you do that, isn't it miraculous how easy it is to get a hold of that same person? And it's not because it's some miracle. What happens is, I call it, you're in play. There's this ongoing conversation. So if you and I talked yesterday, if I call you If I called you or you called me a half hour from now, we're not having this long conversation. You might want to be sitting in the office for, but you could be at lunch with Tom, or I could be in an appointment. I could still maybe text you or pick up and say, hey, I'm on an appointment. Let me shoot you right back. You don't do that unless you're in play. So what you want to be doing is you want to finally get into that ongoing conversation with a client where you're talking about houses, you're having that thing, you're having that dialogue back and forth. Because more times than not now, they might be the one who finds the home. And if you're the one they had the most recent dialogue with, you're going to get the phone call. So you talk to someone about a house on Main Street today, and it's a $5 million house on Main Street, and they say, you know what, really, I'm not my style. I think it's too much money. I already saw that home, whatever it was. Later that night, if they're in their sweats drinking a glass of wine, and something pops up on Zillow first time, and it's on Main Street, or it's a block away, or it's a mile away, or it looks similar, and it pops up and they want to get information on that, you're probably the person they're going to connect with, not even their cousin who they thought they were going to buy a home from, but they haven't talked to in 6 months. You're the easiest person to get a hold of. Now, this isn't 100% of the time, but it's more than 50% of the time. So if you're in play with that person, you're the one who becomes their broker. And by the way, the harder it is to get a hold of somebody, the more annoying they are. You have to, you're calling them, you're texting, you're not getting a hold of them. Most people get discouraged, and it's the opposite. The harder it is to get a hold of someone, the more brokers are falling by the wayside. You got some total pain in the ass you can't get a hold of. By the time you finally get a hold of them, there's no more agents left. You're it.
Everyone else has fallen off. It's a game of attrition. They've given up, man. I love that.
And guess what? They're grateful. I have hunted people down like crazy, just over and over and over. And I do it in a very tactful way, and I can get into that. But when I finally get a hold of them 3-6 months later, or we're finally going to do something, they'll get kinesthetic with me, and they go, you know what? I want to thank you so much for staying on top of me. I was interested. I was just busy or whatever. And they're grateful for it.
I love it. So let's hop into the methodology or the strategy itself. You said, if we know that there's certain individuals that are hard to get a hold of, right? And a lot of times those individuals are the ones that you want to work with because they are busy, right? They have a higher dollar amount.
It doesn't mean they're not interested. It doesn't
mean they're not interested.
They might just be busy.
How do you hunt them down? What is the process that like Gary Gold's patented process for hunting someone down, and how aggressive do you actually approach it?
Okay, what I did, I'm going to give you 2 methodologies that are just critical, and it is my secret sauce. It's my voodoo. Number 1, not only do people have preferences of how they like to communicate. There's people like to text, people like to email, people like to talk on the phone, but there's also patterns. My best client, we initially met physically, and then I tried to reach him on the phone forever, and I couldn't reach him. And then one day I texted him, and all of a sudden, pop, bam, we're in communication, we're in play. But then once I texted him, he only wanted to talk on the phone. And then once we got into nitty gritty with properties and this and that, we switched to email, and I noticed his pattern. So sometimes I'll switch up the pattern because you just don't know what will resonate with people. And if you're trying to reach people a lot, if you mix it up, it doesn't seem like you're stalking them. And but the key, so that's just the certain thing about communication patterns. You've got to mix it up. You just don't know how you're going to connect with someone. Also, time of day. You might be trying to reach someone every morning, and all of a sudden you call them at 9 o'clock at night, and bam, they're available. So you want to mix that up as well. You never want to lay a trip on anyone. I never call up someone, why aren't you calling me back? Or God, I've been trying to reach you forever. I make it seem like it's the first time I've ever talked to them. Or at least I don't lay any trip on them. It's just, I just get straight to what I wanted to call them about. But how you really nail these people, I call it pushing buttons. There's all these people trying to get someone's business, and that person might be ready now, or 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. And not only do you switch up the patterns, but you just start saying different things. The one thing I never call up and say is, hey, Ben, I'm just calling you to check in. I think that's so weak. Now, there are some people that do it and they just don't even want to plan anything. When I call someone with something to offer them. I am coming there with information. I'm coming there with something about the market. I'm coming there with a house they might want to see. If they're or a place they want to move. So, because I'm just pushing all these buttons. Because what happens with these high-end clients, but it probably applies to anywhere, is all of a sudden some broker at the right time is going to say the right thing to them, and it's going to resonate, and you're going to push the right button, and all of a sudden they're going to be good to go. And it's like, try, and then, okay, yeah, write it up. And that's how it happens. So you just in play, you just start trying all these different things and be of value. You know what? We make these huge commissions. I know this might be a shock to some people, but you've got to be of value. No one's really interested in just paying you a commission because you have a license. Actually do something valuable. When you're pushing these buttons, I'm not trying to manipulate anyone. I'm trying to do something to help this guy do something where he wants to make that move. I'm being a real estate agent.
Yes. You know what? So I just got 3 key things. Number 1, switch up the delivery mode, right? Like you've got to, you can't just hit them with text. You can't just call them. You can't just email them. Number 2, never leave a trip on them.
Right.
Right. So never leave a trip on them. Like it's imperative that you're always calling with information. You have a reason that you're calling. I love that, man. Because I think a lot of people do call and go, hey, just checking in. How are you doing? So
I personally, there are people that do that relationship thing and they want to know how their kids are and this and that. And for me, I find it a little disingenuous. And I really want to keep I'm funny. I have fun with people. I like people. We have relationships. But I don't want to hide what I'm doing. I want it to be right up in front, what we're doing. I used to make that mistake. I mean, sometimes I'll get someone in the car and go, you know what? I'm an expensive guy to spend an hour with. This could cost you some money.
Love it, man. I'm an expensive guy. So I've got number 1, capture the information, get it in the right appropriate lead tracking. I've got number 2, engage them. Right? You've got to engage them. Number 3, holy grail, get in play with them. Get that first conversation, right? And then number 4 is, how do we hunt someone? Well, we've got to hunt them with, different tools. We can't use the same tool over and over again. And then, mix up the time of day and then be of value to them. Call with information, right? So how do you, there's so many great agents, that are up there in Beverly Hills. And then there's the mediocre. And then there's the other ones that sell a house every now and again. How do you separate yourself in these conversations and dialogues with the other great agents?
Well, I'm kind of insecure. If you really just unpeel the layers, I'm kind of insecure. I used to be a fat kid and I'm like, I still have a little bit of that in me. And I also, when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I was really funny and kind of out there and I was just joking around. People thought I was stupid. They didn't think I was like smart. They thought I was like a space cadet. So it's really important for me to come off as smart and valuable. So I'm not trying to do some ego thing with somebody, but it's funny. Someone asked me if I'm nervous about ever picking up the phone or going after a lead. If I have nothing to say, I am really insecure about picking up the phone and call someone. If I have something to offer them and to say, I'm completely secure. So how I overcome my insecurity is be valuable. So to me, that's how, so I really come to people. I feel I'm giving them valuable information. Also, I realize, in our business, especially in the high end, anything can happen. And you could go after someone and think you're not getting it. And a series of things happens. And like today, I could make $500,000 today. I might not make any money in 2 months. God forbid that doesn't happen. But anything can possibly happen. So with pushing buttons and being in play with someone, I'm just moving these relationships and these situations with people one step forward, just one step here, one step there. And as we move it forward, there are deals that are going to happen. And you can have clients that go, listen, I'm not taking less than $5 million or I'll keep the house. And they could tell you that for 3 months. and then they call, then they call you or see you and go, you know what, we got to get rid of it right now. I need it sold in 30 days.
Yeah.
Or
and you would miss that
opportunity.
opportunity. You would miss that opportunity if you were not continuing to push the buttons, to stay and play with them, to position yourself as the expert and bring them value, wouldn't you?
Anything can happen in real estate if you're happening. If you keep your cool, stay and play. If you lose a deal, don't sweat it. Just keep moving forward with things. Even something that literally, you know what, today I could have 3 things that fell apart and go, oh my God, this was like the shittiest day ever. And I could wake up tomorrow and they could all fall back together again.
Yeah.
Or something falls apart and you end up doing 3 deals because of that.
Yeah.
And it opens
anything can happen.
Right.
Anything can happen. So, you know, I'm looking at this and even though this is a luxury, a luxury conversation or a luxury market that you're in, all of this transfers over to an agent that's in Iowa selling $120,000 homes. I mean, it's the same thing. It's still relationships.
And in every market, I'm sure people have these situations where they really want a particular listing. If you're selling 300 homes a year, and that's how you have to sell homes, you probably don't sweat each deal as much as I would. But there probably are some key deals that are really important to you that you do want to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Some key relationships that you need to build. So I always ask this on every single interview. Do you have a morning routine? And if so, what is it?
I tend to get out of bed.
Step number 1.
No, do I have a morning routine? The only thing I do routinely is before I get out of bed, when I'm still in that kind of, subconscious dreamy state, I go through my day. And I do it intentionally where I'm like fading in and out because I feel like I'm a sponge. So I say very positive things and I do it before I go to bed too, just things I want to accomplish and where I want to be or some keys to what I want to accomplish today. And I do that when I'm like barely awake. But then I wake up, I've got a 9 and 11-year-old and they're like going to school. So I'm making breakfast. I might take them to school, make sure they're ready. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, but there's validity to what you just said, like that sort of waking and going to sleep dream consciousness, like where you're awake but you're asleep. The ego has less of a filter at that point. So what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. Of okay, what is the day going to be like tomorrow? And as you wake up, going through and playing through the day. What book, Gary, has had the greatest impact on you in your business and your life that you've read?
When I was about 10 years old, I was in Palm Springs and I walked into a bookstore and I'm looking at my son who's 10 years old and I couldn't imagine him doing this. And I went to the self-help section.
Wow.
A self-help section. And there was a book that said The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. And for reasons unknown to me, I resonated to that and I bought that book. And I read it a bunch of times, and there were some key giveaways that what he had brought out. He had I think the key thing is he goes, look around the room, look at your door, look at the floor, look at the carpet, look at that car, look at this. He goes, those were all people's ideas, and they became true based on someone physically materializing that, coming up with an idea and making it happen. So that was a huge book. I also read probably 10 times Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah. The Bible, so to speak, of self-help. Yeah, for sure. Or personal growth.
Right. And then Tony Robbins' 30-day program. It was on DVD. That was probably number 1. That one was huge for me.
I'm disappointed he got rid of that. He no longer makes that available. You have to find it on eBay. I had that when it was a tape series. Do you remember that?
Yes. Now I have that one. The 30-day one I like the best. Also, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous probably played a pretty good role.
Nice. Yeah.
I've been sober 30 years.
Hey, congratulations, brother. That's absolutely amazing. So dude, you're sitting down. You have one last thing to say to them before they go out into the world. You're with all of our great listeners that are listening right now. What would you tell them? What's the one thing you would leave them with?
Well, one thing I left out one more thing about being in play, which is like, really, if you do this, this is where you end up making fans and getting listings and getting buyers and becoming that one agent. I call it connecting the dots. And this is when life gets really interesting with your database. When you get a new buyer, and I have a system where I can go through all the people who are potential sellers and maybe connect, okay, this guy might want to buy this guy's house. And if I say, I got an off-market listing that I want to show you. First of all, if a buyer hears off-market listing, you've just gone to the top of the pecking order. This guy's going to do something more than I can do myself. And then when you bring that seller, that's a great thing to push a button. Hey, I got a guy that might be interested in your house. Can I show it? That just moves that relationship forward. Every once in a while, you double pop something, but you are showing this person that you're not just someone who wants a commission. You're someone that actually makes shit happen. And that's in our office. That's where the big bucks are made, right there.
I love it. You know, that reminds me, Gary, of Steve Jobs, and in that wonderful book by Walter Isaacson. You know, Jobs says what he did so well wasn't create; he just connected dots. He realized what people needed, connected the dots, and that's why he was who he was, and why Apple is what it is. And it's the same thing that you do. So, brother, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, all this stuff I'm talking about. I just started. I started something called Voodoo Agent, and on YouTube channel, I send it out every week. It's like this little 5-minute thing. But my soldbygold.net is my website. About to launch a new one. You can email me, Gary@soldbygold.net. I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really love and appreciate about you, and I'm grateful for, is that inside the ecosystem of Tom Ferry, you're always there for support. In fact, Patrick Ferry and I were talking about that before this interview took place. I told him I had the privilege of interviewing Gary Gold. He goes, "Oh, now you'll love this." He goes, "I have a conversation that I want to have with Gary." Yeah, and he's always so accessible, is always available. So,
well, let me say why. It's not out of selfishness. It's not because I'm like such a great person. I might be a great person, but I have learned that when I teach what I know, I learn it on such a deeper level that it just makes me that much better. So I really find, if you really want to know something, you want to be a real just expert Jedi warrior, teach it to someone else. So that's why one of the many reasons why I do things like this.
Brilliant, man. Well, from all of Real Success Nation to you, we want to say a big thank you for taking time out of your day. This has been worth the 12 months that we've been waiting to do this, brother. So
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of you who are listening, again, thank you very much. Be sure to like it and heart it up if you enjoy this interview, which I know that you do. And we're, open to the comments of questions that you have, etc. And we'll be looking at that as well too. Remember, we, like Gary, are here to support you. So if you need anything, please go to tomferry.com for all of our resources, as well as the support that we have for you from a coaching perspective. Otherwise, guys, keep your mind focused on the future, keep your actions in the present, and keep on moving forward. I'll talk to you next month. Thanks again, Mr. Gold. Appreciate you.
Take care.